Russell Westbrook's 2016-17 MVP season was one for the ages. That year, Russ had the highest usage percentage in NBA history, meaning that OKC lived and died by Westbrook's play. That heavy reliance on Russ helped him average a triple-double on the year, breaking Oscar Robertson's single-season record for triple-doubles in the process. But before Russ achieved those feats, Oscar's records were thought by many to be unbeatable. Besides Westbrook, no one else in the modern era had even come close to beating Oscar's record of 41 triple-doubles in a season. However, there was a player who played in Oscar's era that once had 31 triple-doubles in a season. But when we take into consideration the stats that I'm going to bring up in this video, there's reason to believe that that number was actually a lot higher. The player that I'm talking about is none other than Wilt Chamberlain. During the 1967-68 season, Wilt recorded 31 triple-doubles. At the time, the only way someone could record a triple-double was by getting one with points, rebounds, and assists. This is because blocks and steals were not recorded until the 1973-74 season, which was Wilt's first year of retirement. This means that we have no recorded stats about the number of blocks he had throughout his entire career. However, there have been a number of crazy stories about the amount of blocks that Wilt actually averaged during his career. The actual number of blocks that Wilt averaged throughout his career is unknown, but people who watched him claim that they would count him getting 20 to 25 blocks on some nights. While I doubt he averaged 20 blocks per game, there was an 112-game sample size in which Wilt's blocks were recorded. I'm just going to leave these up here on the screen. You can pause the video if you want to read them all. These stats came from newspapers, coaches, and game film through his career. In those 112 games, it is said that Wilt averaged 8.8 blocks per game. This means that Wilt may have a ridiculous amount of unrecorded triple-doubles that we simply don't know about, but we're going to try and predict just how many he might have actually recorded. In order to get an idea of how many triple-doubles Wilt had with points, rebounds, and blocks, we'll need to use John Wall as a reference point. In the 2013-14 season, John Wall averaged 8.8 assists per game and played in all 82 games. In total, Wall had 32 games of at least 10 assists, meaning that he recorded 10 plus assists in 39% of his games that year. If Wilt truly did average 8.8 blocks per game, this means that we could expect him to get 10 plus blocks in 39% of the games he played in. That being said, if we apply that same 39% rate to Wilt's blocks, that would mean that he had 408 games of 10 or more blocks in his career. Considering Wilt was a lock to get a double-double nearly every night, this would mean that if he averaged 8.8 blocks for his career, Wilt would have had 408 triple-doubles with blocks, points, and rebounds. And that's not even taking into consideration the games where he didn't get 10 blocks, but he got 10 assists or 10 steals to go along with 10 points and 10 rebounds. While I do believe Wilt could have had seasons of 8.8 blocks per game at his peak, it seems hard to believe that he averaged that for his entire career. I know that they played at a much faster pace during Wilt's era, and more shot attempts means more opportunities to block shots, but after all, Wilt played over 1,000 games in his career, and the sample size in which he allegedly blocked 8.8 shots per game was from just 112 games. After finding this article from Bleacher Report, it looks like a more realistic career block average for him would be somewhere between 6 and 8. So in order to get a better idea of the amount of triple-doubles Wilt may have gotten in his career, I'm going to apply a 5% progression and regression model. If we look at Wilt's career stats, we can see that his numbers were improving his first 3 years in the league. By his third season, Wilt was putting up the best numbers of his career and appeared to be playing at 100% of his powers. For this reason, we're going to assume that he averaged 8.8 blocks per game this season. After his third season though, Wilt's stats seemed to consistently decrease. Now the main reason for Wilt's decline in scoring had to do with his team's offensive schemes becoming more about sharing the ball rather than just letting Wilt do all the scoring. But I believe we can apply that same logic to the defensive end as well. While Wilt was struggling to win rings early on in his career, Bill Russell and the Celtics were in the midst of an amazing 8-year championship run. Like Wilt, Russell was also a very great shot blocker, but Russell has been quoted as saying, "The idea is not to block every shot. The idea is to make your opponent believe that you might block every shot." On top of that, Russell was also a very unselfish player that looked to get his teammates involved on the offensive end. In order to start winning championships, we're going to assume that Wilt not only modeled his game after Russell on the offensive end, but on the defensive end as well. With that in mind, I've set up this progression and regression models as such. Essentially, we're going to assume that Wilt's blocks per game got up to 8.8 per game by his third season, and then after that, his blocks per game decreased by 5% each season along with his other stats. In order to get a better idea of the number of 10 block games and point, rebound, block triple doubles that Wilt had throughout his entire career, I did the same thing that I had done earlier in the video with John Wall's assist numbers, just with different players and different averages to compensate for the decline in blocks per game that Wilt would be getting from the third year of his career and on. The reason I used assists was because, like blocks, assists are a stat that's dependent on other players. If a player averages a lot of points, that average is usually dependent on their ability and their ability alone. However, if a player wants to average a lot of assists, they have to be a good passer, but they also have to have teammates that can knock down those shots and get them those assists. In the case of a great shot blocker like Wilt, he is a phenomenal defensive player, but his blocks per game average would have also been reliant on the shot selection of the players that he was going up against. By doing this, I could kind of get an idea of how many 10 block games to expect from Wilt each season. Hopefully the way I explained it actually made sense. Anyways, after doing all of these calculations, these are the numbers I got. Now this 203 number that I got was just a rough estimate because Wilt could have had some games where he got 10 blocks, but not necessarily a triple-double. However, that would have been extremely rare since we all know that Wilt's scoring and rebounding numbers were absolutely absurd. Anyways, let's just round down to 200 triple-doubles for argument's sake. 200 in triple-doubles is insane, and it would immediately put him at the top of the list for most triple-doubles of all time. But this number would just be a minimum. Remember earlier when I brought up Wilt's alleged quintuple double game? Whether these stats were 100% accurate or not is unimportant. The fact that we don't really question Wilt's ability to get these kinds of numbers just goes to show how dominant he was in all facets of the game. More importantly, this type of stat line shows us that Wilt could have gotten triple doubles with any combination of stats. I think it's safe to say that Wilt had a minimum of 200 career triple doubles in his career. If I had to guess though, I'd say that Wilt has somewhere between 250 to 300 once you consider the triple doubles with 10 plus assists or steals as well. Unfortunately, we can't predict the exact number of triple doubles that he had per season, but I'm sure Wilt's had at least one season where he had more than 42, which is the number of triple doubles that Westbrook had in his record-breaking MVP season. In totality, having between 250 to 300 career triple doubles would put Wilt way ahead of Oscar Robertson, who had 181 for his career. On top of the crazy amount of triple doubles, if my numbers were accurate, it would have meant that Wilt also had 6,994 blocks in his career. Getting almost 7,000 blocks in a career is absolutely insane considering the current all-time leader in blocks is Hakeem Olajuwon, who got 3,830, which would mean that Wilt has more than 3,000 more than the current all-time shot blocking leader. This is all just crazy to think about, honestly. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to make as much sense as possible. If you're still here, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like on the video. I put a lot of work into this video, and overall it just helps a lot to get my videos out to as many people as possible. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate y'all, and I'm out.